Ali, Ambassador of Oman, who is joining online from Oman. Ambassador of the Syrian Arab Republic to India, Ambassador Bassam Al-Khatib. His Excellency Ambassador Ali Ashouri, Ambassador of the People's Democratic Republic of Algeria to India, and Ambassador of Lebanon to India, Dr. Rabinash, Ambassador Rabinash. Okay, I give the floor, since we have very less time, to our Ambassador Abdul Fattah Amoura, former Ambassador and former Deputy Prime Minister of Syria, Professor and Vice Dean of Jindal School of International Affairs, Director of the Center for Middle East Studies. He will introduce the event and the topic will be just peace diplomacy, Middle East Studies, and North Africa. So I leave the floor to Ambassador Abdul Fattah Amoura.
Well, it's dear audience, colleagues, students, distinguished ambassadors. It's really very difficult to speak in 5 minutes to cover an introduction to this very important topic that is just the peace diplomacy in the Middle East and North Africa. However, as being a diplomat, a former diplomat who should be bound by time and punctuality, I will try to do my best. And the best way, I believe, to express to the point the topic is by saying, as a part of our culture, Assalamu alaikum, which is peace be upon you. It is not a venture. We should take lightly in our discussion of achieving just peace in the complex, vital, and volatile MENA region. To approach our theme today, it is relevant to look into the confluence and convergence between international law and international relations, and their relevance to the politics of power peace and diplomacy peace in general, and the MENA region in particular, in a world in flux, changing all the time. And just so as to come out with one dispute and conflict and war still exists. Is there no other way? Why just peace diplomacy? Why has it failed so far to achieve a just solution? Our endeavor today requires understanding the resilient management of the issues of war, peace, and diplomacy in ours, and the several perplexing and ambiguous terminologies used in a bargaining game. I stress bargaining game, handling the achievement of the just peace solution. Such terminologies are the use of, for example, dispute instead of conflict, peace talks instead of peace negotiations, fair and balanced settlement in place of the just solution idea. Partial withdrawal from occupied, without the definite article, from the Arab occupied territories in place of the full and comprehensive withdrawal from the occupied Arab territories. securing boundaries with this, securing as walking a stick, it doesn't walk, but it helps other to walk. Securing borders instead of secure boundaries and borders. Considering building settlements as an obstacle to peace in place of being illegal. See how it changes. Neglecting, finally, the rights of people to self-determination, including their right to establish their independent sovereign states and political system. All these combined together have been used to alter the achievement of just peace, which requires treading the path of diplomacy peace politics and not power peace politics, where both politics require political will. Does it exist? Maybe on one side, one party, or with one party of the conflict and dispute, but not the other. What is to be done if the other party has no will, political will? He will procrastinate and procrastinate and go instead of making peace into peace process which takes time. Bearing in mind that diplomacy is no more limited to the literate political elites and interested groups, but rather evolved to involve other players, goals and means of implementing foreign policy based on the legal essential principles of international law. Gives hope that diplomacy, in the end of the day, shall give a fruit. So we shouldn't lose hope in diplomacy, but we should always keep knocking the doors, opening the windows, while at the same time being able to invent and invest all powers that one should have. Educational, cultural, media, and all the other. Now, but this is subject to taking the following principles into consideration. Yes, diplomacy, we will go ahead. But if we don't take the legal fixed principles which are internationally recognized norms and values, we will be going nowhere. What are these legal principles? They are mainly maintaining sovereignty of the states, non-interference in their internal affairs, rights of people to self-determination, and inadmissibility of acquisition of territory by force. Activation, finally, of United Nations purpose, goals, and operations, which combined together require diplomatic solutions of dispute and conflict, which are the result of the natural outcome of the heterogeneous culture, traditions, heritage, ideology, politics interplay of world societies and nations, foreign policy, and world affairs in an imbalanced world order. That is why we, in this respect, dialogue and negotiation remain a better alternative, because they are the key to maintain communication among countries and individuals in any given society. The fundamental objective of this workshop at this level is conducting A deep analysis of the various concepts and arguments on war, peace, and diplomacy as practiced by the countries of the ambassadors, distinguished ambassadors, and projecting them on the outcome, so as to come out with a vision on how to spread out the culture of peace diplomacy. Against this background, allow me to pose the following questions. Based on the arguments of some renowned thinkers. One, is war a zero-sum game or a non-zero sum game? Is peace only the end of violence by creating a non-peace and non-war situation? As positive peace and negative peace, should not negative peace include other more positive and appropriate principles than the absence of violence? Finally, why has diplomacy not so far succeeded in solving the dispute and conflict in the MENA region, though they are considered akin to the status of international crisis? There is no one answer to the above questions from the perspectives of world political thinkers and the schools of international relations. However, let's see what the distinguished ambassadors and the faculty, members and the students, we did try to see how they can interact and come to a conclusion or a vision, interactive session, particularly what our distinguished ambassadors will be saying and displaying on the roles, mechanisms, and the practice of the countries. As a third party, in the field of very important dialogue, talks, negotiations, good offices, mediation, inquiry, conciliation, arbitration, and finally, facilitation. And to be frank with you, facilitator and facilitation, it was the first time that I heard it last year when I was in Oman in giving some lectures to the diplomatic academy over there, which really, I think, to understand that this is new to the term, and it has proved to be really the solid base of the Omani foreign policy toward achieving the peace in the region. It is to facilitate, not to interfere, to give some advice, to prepare, to secure all logistics, all needed, or something, and sometimes, if required, to give advice. Now, each of these terms has certain terms and conditions to help reach the solution, what we expect, and are used and practiced to solve the problems which face societies and the states in their disputes and conflict. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Amuna. It is important introduction with so many dilemmas and the importance of diplomacy and the difficult work that diplomacy needs to play in this world where peace and justice not always align. Okay, so now I leave the floor to the professor and Dr. Sriram Chorla, Dean of Jindal School of International Affairs and Director General of Jindal India Institute.
Thank you so much, Sylvia. Namaste. Salam alaikum. Welcome everybody. It's a very important event we right up today, and it's a matter of prestige for JGU that 4 ambassadors are participating in this event and sharing their valuable insights about their respective countries and sub-regions and how they have been creatively using diplomatic good offices to bring about, if not lasting solutions, then at least ceasefires and also rapprochements between major regional and extra-regional rivals. Now, it's a common thing to hear about just war theory. Many of you, your classmates, know about and read about just war. You know, attributed to theorists like Hugo Grotius. So that actually creates the basis for to justify a country to defend itself against aggression and other such threats. And that it lays the foundation for an ethical basis to go to war. But what is just peace as opposed to just war? This is, I guess, this we need to think deeper, and I'm sure we will hear from the distinguished ambassadors of the four countries who are here. I must say that Oman in particular has made a name for itself, and Excellency Ambassador Oman is here joining us through remote. And I remember when the JCPOA agreement, you know, the nuclear deal between the US and Iran was being negotiated with the Obama administration. Oman played a very critical role behind the scenes in facilitating. It's just one of many such roles that Oman has played, and that's why I said creative diplomacy is the key. Oman, a relatively small power, but which has a huge diplomatic influence because of its openness to all sides. So that has been the strength of Oman, and we know that especially with the Iranian question, because Iran is always in the center of the so-called polarization in the region. Oman has played a very creative role and a very this facilitation that Professor Amullah spoke about. But we also have countries like Lebanon. In fact, our distinguished ambassador of Lebanon, we are proud that he is our own alumnus from JSIA and JGU, and he received his doctoral degree from us. And they also, you know, he's going to be speaking about the domestic diplomacy between the different so-called ethnic groups and the divisions and how they could create a stable, a relatively stable state, although it has been struggling lately. But if you see the overall picture, they've come a long way from the years of the civil war. That's very interesting too. And then we have His Excellency the Ambassador of Algeria, who's also speaking about diplomacy and for good offices. You know, when a country offers this, what do they get in return? I think it's the Bible which says, "Blessed are the peacemakers." But on the Old Testament, I can't remember. But here, apart from blessings, what do you get for being the facilitator? That is the, you know, always an intriguing question. Why do certain countries, especially small to middle powers, engage in this kind of creative facilitation or intermediation or interlocutorship type roles between warring parties or between conflicting parties? And what do they gain from it? Is it just a soft power benefit, or is there something else that they also acquire in material terms for facilitating peace? Fascinating, because at the end of the day, for all the theory of justice and fairness, nation states do think in terms of core self-interest, right? But some of these countries, which are represented here in the panel, have defined their roles in terms of or their interests, or redefine their interests, or enlarge this notion of self-interest to include peace facilitation, mediation, arbitration, and other things. So it's worth learning from all these distinguished scholar diplomats who are with us. Let me mention something interesting that just happened last week. The Ukrainian foreign minister was in India, and they are going for another attempted round of peace negotiations. And one of the reasons Dmitry Kuleba was here was because he wanted India to take on a bigger role and a responsibility for trying to bring this other big war that's going on in Eastern Europe to a close. And India has a history of playing a constructive role to try and bring the raging armed conflicts to a close. less so in recent times, but certainly in the post-independence period. You know, all the major conflicts of that era, of the 1950s, for example, the Suez Crisis, the war of 1956, the Arab-Israeli War of 1956, then the Korean War, 1950 to 53, and also there were other conflicts in the region in Asia, where India actually mediated or offered its good offices. And now maybe the time has come back to do something like this because there's a lot of expectation on India. There's a lot of hope about India, and India, because it has kept its doors open to different parties, has got leverage with many sides. And it's interesting to note in the Russia-Ukraine context, you know, people often talk about how close we have been historically to Russia, but we also have defense agreements with the Ukrainians, and we also have agriculture and other forms of trade with the Ukrainians. And we would want also to make sure that by playing some behind the scenes role, we'll be able to gain more leverage and influence in Eastern Europe as a whole. So I'm simply saying that when nation states take up this huge responsibility, it's often a thankless job. Doing this kind of mediation of good offices often fails, doesn't succeed. And there are many countries that have been trying. In the case of the this war, you know, Turkey has tried. There have been proposals from the African countries, from Brazil. Many have floated peace processes or attempted peace processes. So far, they have not come to a solution. But perhaps they all add up over time, so that the warring parties or the principal parties realize that, look, many influential countries want us to settle, and our other interests may be hurt if we do not finally end this mayhem that's going on. So, in the case of Israel-Hamas war also, there have been multiple efforts. Egypt and Qatar are playing a big role, and here the idea is that these two countries, they have a lot of influence on both the principal parties, which is Israel and Hamas. And so they have got the lines open. Egyptian intelligence is leading the talks mostly for a lot of these delicate negotiations about hostages, ceasefire, all these things. So all these countries, instead of simply jumping ship or jumping onto one side and saying I'm with X or with Y, stay somewhat neutral or somewhere in the middle. Oman is a classic example of that. Emirates, another example. You know? These countries are worth studying. And again, let me close by asking you to think about what do they gain from doing this kind of work. Is it just an international social service? They don't get paid for this. They don't get any clear monetary benefits. Nor do they get any market access. Immediately, at least not in a very evident way. But still, many of them do it. It's part of their identity. It's part of their history and of who they are, and their notion of being a good international citizen or a good regional citizen. So these things, I think, are worth reflecting on as to why countries do this. And I hope that we learn from our distinguished ambassadors for speaking today about their respective countries and sub-regions. And I think it's a great opportunity and a privilege for our students to hear directly from the practitioners who will be involved in these negotiations. All these distinguished ambassadors themselves have been part of negotiating teams or mediating teams in their careers. So they can, and let me tell you, if on paper, X is Y's enemy and they don't see each eye to eye, and each is out to get the other or to kill the other. It looks like that, right, on the surface. But there is this world behind the front lines, behind the trench warfare, where people actually are continuing to talk and continuing to try and bring about some settlements. And usually it's less heard of, it's less headline making, but in the long run, that is the most important. So let's I want to put our hands together and thank the distinguished ambassadors for being with us and for sharing their knowledge. And we look forward to learning from them. Maybe there's something that India can pick up from the experience of these countries as we also look to expand our footprint and our soft power and our moral influence around the world. As our Prime Minister is nowadays, there are two terms. One is Vishnu Guru, which is like a teacher to the world. The other is Vishnu Mitra, or a friend to the world. These are the ones that have been it will be heard in our official communications. And I think we need and we are looking for opportune moments to make the key interventions to try and be seen as problem solvers, which helps to raise our stature as a rising power and a would-be great power. So thank you very much to Excellencies for being here, and we look forward to a great day of learning and reflection from all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Julia. And now I invite the Chancellor of the Opportunity Global University, Professor Nabil Shida Fahima.
Thank you very much, Sylvia. A very good morning to all our distinguished ambassadors, Ambassador Nerj, Ambassador of India, Ambassador Al-Khatib, Ambassador of the Syrian Arab Republic to India, Ambassador Al-Shibani, Ambassador of the Sultanate of Oman to India, who joined us remotely this morning, and Ambassador Ali Achal. I will be excused if my pronunciation is wrong. Ambassador of the People's Democratic Republic of Algeria to India, and all our dear faculty members, deans, students, and everyone who is interested in this topic and who joined the meeting this morning. A lot has been said by my colleagues, Professor Sriram and Professor Nola, the centrality of the issue and why we are meeting here this morning in this workshop format. And to me, that is the real point of departure, wherein I would like to first of all compliment the organizers for having convened and curated a session of this nature. Because, you know, when you're doing a kind of a workshop on a very important topic, and the obvious nature of this topic is well known to us, given the developments which are taking place in the region and the geopolitical and economic developments that are taking place around us in this particular region, and that's to impact India and even otherwise. So a workshop of this nature gives some opportunity for each one of you, and in particular all the students who are present here, to participate actively and even to share your thoughts. And to me, that's significant because Dr. Sriram earlier talked about just war, and even he alluded to just peace. So that becomes important, because when we talk about just peace, it's not like simply we are talking about avoidance of a conflict and then ushering in peace. So it is not like quote unquote just a peace, but this is a kind of a workshop that will not only introduce you to the concept of just peace, which is not a perfunctory or an esoteric concept, as some of us might even think it to be, given the title of this particular workshop. But a lot of thinking had gone into the way in which the title of the workshop has been formulated. So my compliments to all the organizers. And to me, that is synonymous with the format of the workshop as well. Because generally speaking, when we talk about concepts like just peace, we talk about the mutual contribution of all the parties to resolving a particular conflict, right? And to even look at the functional purpose of resolving a particular conflict, how we can come together, discuss with each other in order to find a way forward. So this is something akin to what we are doing here today. And secondly, what makes this entire session more significant is that the presence of all the distinguished ambassadors over here. And we also have with us people like Ambassador Gudmundur Eriksson, who joined us, and every one of them who add value to the conversations. Because, let's say, as students, as researchers, as teachers, when we are reading a particular text, a text which is written, obviously, there might be some limitations to understand the text. But today, what you have is listening to the lived experiences of the ambassadors who had been there and who are there, and you're contributing to the world politics and peace and diplomacy and negotiations. So this by itself is a very rich source of information, which goes on to even testify the fact that when we learn, the learning just won't happen inside the precincts of a classroom, but it also happens anywhere and wherever we have such conferences, meetings, and workshops. So it's going to be a rich and a varied experience when we listen to all of them together, their experiences, their thoughts, and their perspectives, and their interpretation. Because when an amalgamation of all these things come together, that also reflects on a certain national attitude that comes to the fore, which you may or may not find in a text which has its limitation, but notwithstanding that fact, it's going to be an enriching experience talking to them, and even just to see how international relations and even international law play together, and they are deeply intertwined. So this is going to be an amazing experience. So I compliment the organizers once again for carving out a session like this one for the benefit of all the students of the JSIA and other schools of the university, but even for the common benefit of mankind, because I'm sure that people will also watch these proceedings online. We will have these records available, and these thoughts and ideas will be useful when we contribute to the larger good of our society. So on this particular note, I thank the organizers for giving me an opportunity to be with you and to interact with each one of you. And I also bring to you the greetings of the Vice Chancellor, who could not join us for this particular session, but nonetheless, who spent some time with our distinguished ambassadors. And it's also a special feeling because we have the ambassador of Lebanon with us, who is not only here present in his official capacity to engage with each one of you, but he also studied with us. So it's like, homecoming, and it's always a pleasure to welcome our alumni in whatever capacity they are whenever they visit us. And we always will have something to learn from our alumni. And thank you so much. I wish you a very engaging and enriching afternoon. Thank you.
And now we start the substantial session. The first part will be on regional organization and bilateral approaches. And the first speaker will be online, our Excellency Ambassador Mr. Issa Saleh Al-Shibali, Ambassador of the Sultanate of Oman to India. The topic will be Gulf Cooperation Council and Omani peace diplomacy. Ambassador Al-Shibali, the floor is yours. And yes, thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Sriram Cholia, Dean of the Jindal School of International Relations, dear friend and intellect, Ambassador Dr. Abdul Fattah Hamoura, Professor Tapiro, esteemed excellencies on the dais, distinguished attendants, dear students who are the diplomats, negotiators, policymakers, and leaders of peace for tomorrow. I would really start with apologizing of not being able to be maybe there in person, but when I was told that I could take my leave, I really didn't hesitate to rush to Oman to spend this month of Ramadan, the month of mercy, peace, forgiveness, that we really wish for and we aspire to. As we really unravel through the complexities of international relations, we are always reminded of the ever-increasing importance of diplomacy in our interconnected world. So at its essence, when we think of it, diplomacy is about conversations. It's about countries sitting down, maybe sharing a cup of tea or coffee, and discussing how to coexist peacefully and comfortably. Think of diplomacy as the world's most crucial networking event, where the aim is to foster peace and mutual benefits rather than really just exchange business card. Diplomacy of peace, or as somebody call it, back channel diplomacy, are two sides of the same coin, and they intertwine as strategic facets of international relations, each vital for resolving conflicts and fostering lasting peace. Back channel diplomacy, with its emphasis on privacy and flexibility, allows parties to negotiate away from the public eye, overcoming political hurdles and building trust through confidential communications. Meanwhile, the diplomacy of peace focuses on dialogue, cooperation, and addressing the root causes of conflict, aiming not just to cease hostilities, but to build sustainable, positive relationships between adversaries. Together, these approaches offer a subtle toolkit for navigating complex diplomatic landscapes, leveraging the discrete, innovative potential of back-channel talks within the broader proactive framework for peace diplomacy to prevent and resolve global conflicts. When you think of Oman, you imagine Oman as really the lead facilitator in a world where voices are often raised in anger rather than dialogue. Under the perceptive leadership of the late Sultan Qaboos, and now continued by Sultan Haytham, Oman has become a testament to the power of a quiet diplomacy. Reflect on a moment back in 2013, when the Dean mentioned the GCPOA, which is amidst the swirling tension of international politics, where Oman hosted crucial talks between Iran and the United States. This wasn't just about hosting. It was about believing in the power of dialogue to resolve seemingly intractable disputes. Oman's approach to diplomacy can be likened to a master weaver of a loom, carefully and deliberately intertwining threads to create a tapestry of peace. This nation's commitment to understanding and mutual respect has not only averted potential conflict, but also laid the groundwork for historic agreements. Another poignant example of Oman diplomatic finesse was its subtle but significant role in facilitating the release of hostages from Yemen. Oman has offered a neutral venue for peace talks and has been involved in back-channel diplomacy aimed at finding a peaceful resolution to the conflict. For instance, Oman hosted informal talks and has been placed where Houthi representatives could safely conduct negotiation with foreign diplomats. Through quiet negotiations and leveraging its neutral stance, Oman has often been the silent lead in humanitarian effort and conflict resolution. The legacy of His Majesty, the former Majesty Sultan Qaboos, and now His Majesty Sultan Haytham is not just about specific events or interventions. It's about a consistent philosophy that true security and peace come from building bridges, not walls, from listening attentively, and from extending a hand of friendship even when fists are clenched in anger elsewhere. The story of the Gulf Cooperation Council, the GCC, is a narrative of ambition, unity, and sometimes complex dynamics amongst its members. Formed in the shadow of the Iran-Iraq war, the GCC was born out of a necessity for collective security and economic cooperation, but has grown to represent much more. The Council Charter speaks to grand aspiration of integration and unity, reflective of a deeper conviction that together the states can navigate the challenges of the region more effectively than they can alone. Over the years, the GCC has been a platform for economic achievement, such as the creation of custom unions and common markets, aiming for greater economic harmonization amongst its member states. These steps towards economic integration are significant, considering the diverse economic landscapes and priorities within the GCC. Yet the journey of the GCC has not been without its challenges. The diplomatic crisis with Qatar, the recent one in 2017, tested the Council's unity and highlighted the delicate balance between national sovereignty and collective interest. Through dialogue and mediation led by Kuwait and supported by different partners, the GCC has worked towards resolve such disputes, underscoring the importance of diplomacy and dialogue within the Council itself. So in essence, the GCC's evolution from a security and economic alliance to a body that navigates complex political and environmental issues exemplify the potential of regional organization to foster unity and cooperation in the face of diversity and challenges. In conclusion, the journey of diplomacy in the Middle East, guided by the collective efforts of the GCC and the principled approach of Oman, offered valuable insights into the power of negotiation, the promise of back-channel diplomacy, and the potential for regional cooperation. As we reflect on today's discussions, let us remain hopeful and committed to the pursuit of a peaceful cooperative diplomacy. Thank you very much for your attention, and may our collective efforts toward peace and diplomacy continue to light the way forward for all of us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ambassador Shiban. Now I give the floor to His Excellency Ambassador Bassam Al-Khatib, Ambassador of the Syrian Arab Republic of India, with the topic League of Arab States Diplomacy and Syria.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I'm very happy to be here to see most very active, beautiful faces to speak about this. When it comes to diplomacy, we have many levels of diplomacy. One, two, not only. In all cases, I was very curious to the remarks presented in the forum speakers. Then I need some things to talk about. When it comes to diplomacy, we can talk about the bilateral level, and then when it comes to the organization diplomacy, regional or international. In this case, when it comes to the Arab League, which organization I worked for about 4 years, I can say that there is a step behind the shift when it comes to the comparison between the United Nations and the Arab. For the establishment of the Arab League in 1945, something like this, it was exactly behind a statement by former Prime Minister of Britain, Anthony Eden. Then he made a statement at that time saying that we would be very happy to see the unity of Arabs, and my government will be supporting this. Only 2 years later, the founder states, including my country, Syria, met in Alexandria, Egypt, and made the first draft of the constitution of the Arab League. Let me go to the point. The establishment of the constitution of the Arab League depended then on the idea of the states, a kind of unity among the states, not peoples. This very weak beginning affected the process and the development of the Arab League for the rest of its life. First, it's regional, but it's not that influential when it comes to the region. Then it's regional, so it's weaker than the international one. then it's a unity of states. It's not a unity of civilizations, cultures, or people. So, sorry to say this, but the Arab League started weak and continued in a international arena and a sensitive regional arena, not to be that influential in favor of Arab interests. When it comes to my country, a country of about 10,000 years old, all civilizations once upon a time were in Syria. All religions once upon a time in Syria. All sects of religions so far stable. In my country, now, if you go to the pastors, you could listen in some villages in the language of Jesus Christ spoken in daily life. This is peace. When Ambassador Amora started by saying, peace be upon you, I can add a Syrian touch. Peace be upon you all and the mercy of God, which is the daily greetings in Syria. Peace. Why just peace? An expression in this direction. Why not international, just and comprehensive peace? Back to the 90s, Syria was of the countries who supported, participated, and did all the best to have peace in the region. But let's go to the realities. The establishment of the Arab League, as I mentioned, it's only a regional organization. But the most important influence is to some countries in this regional organization. Within the passage of time, maybe I have a small comment to what my brother, the Ambassador of Oman, mentioned. The emergence and establishment of the GCC, as I mentioned, was according as expressed to some challenges. Yes, but within the passage of time, the regional system in Arabia lost some of its coherence due to the far areas among challenges in this region. Later on, there was a kind of area, far area, among all regional and international organizations affecting the two challenges. We have, as everybody knows, the OIC, and once upon a time, and in the influence of the OIC, a journalist said, oh, I see. Frankly speaking, it's power, and only power, and all kinds of power. Power for countries, power for resources, power for alliances, and power for organizations. I would be very happy to see the Arab League as one of the most powerful factors in our region and in the world. But there are many things to talk about in this regard. Reform. Everybody now speaks about the reform of the United Nations, but less number in media, in politics, in international organizations speak about the need of the reform of the Arab League. I would love to talk about Arab nationalism and Arab unity. Unity is power. Unity could lead to peace. Arab unity with Arab power could lead to just comprehensive peace. But the challenge is to give an answer. Do we see this now? Do we have it now? At the level of bilateral relations, I can tell you that Syria has very good relations with all Arab nations. Some of Arab countries, because I have my definition of the word unity. When we talk about Arab nation, it's a term, historically speaking, speaks about the whole Arab world. But Arab political unity is something which is still a dream that it takes a long time to see. Back to my idea. Its power, mainly the West, its interest, its resources, that will make us citizens. When some Western countries concentrate on a certain challenge or a certain situation in Arabia, this makes us wait for better and different circumstances to see just comprehensive peace. Is the Arab League able to do this? Is the United Nations able to do this? Syria participated in all initiatives for peace, but for realities, back again, we need to see different situations. And for my country, we were and we will be supported, totally supported to see this kind of peaceful community. When it comes to other factors, let's vote for a better future, for a better world with less influences from Western, some Western powers who only see it for some interest. If I have 2 minutes more, no, this is not democracy. In all cases, I can give some answers if there are questions later. But let's be hopeful. Peace, we will see it once upon the time. Let's hope to see it soon. I can prefer our 10,000 years of civilization will be always important like this. Thank you.
Ambassador Al-Khatib. Now I will introduce the session on bilateral and domestic peace diplomacy with Ambassador Ali Achuli. And he will speak about Algerian diplomacy as a mechanism to solve international disputes and conflicts, mediation and good office. I leave the floor to you, Ambassador Ali Achuli.
Thank you very much for giving me the occasion to be here in this institute. Students, I'm really happy to be here. I want to speak about the Algerian diplomacy and its contribution to solve international disputes and conflicts, especially by the mediation. And I will focus during my intervention on Algeria's to the international efforts to ensure a peaceful international environment where disputes are settled in a civilized and constructive manner, in line with the principles and values which bring in the United Nations Charter. So I insist here that the case of Algerian action for peace is not singular, but combines with those of many countries in each region and the world. India is an example of these countries with the Gandhian peace philosophy and agreement. My intervention will be articulated in 2 axes. First one, what are the origins of the Algerian ideas of peaceful dispute settlements and what doctrine lays at its foundation? The second one is a few examples of successful Algerian mediation. This includes both the action of the Algerian government and the involvement of Algerian diplomats in their personal efforts. That is, as a special envoy of the United Nations Secretary General or in other qualities. Historical background. In Algeria, it's largely believed that our national inclination to peace has deep historical and social roots. To be socially, Algerian society enjoy a long-standing tradition of peaceful settling of disputes. Throughout centuries,
village councils based on customary law built mechanism to ensure that justice and order, where peace is the first consideration to be respected, contributing to maintaining social harmony. The peace treaties of Siga near Ain Timshant in the west of Algeria, which ended the Second Punic War in 206 before Christians, is also among the historical references of early forms of diplomatic settlements. More recently, the action of Emir Abdel Qadir during his exile in Syria to protect thousands of Christians and the entire diplomatic corps in Damascus in 1860 during communal riots in milestone in the Algerian diplomatic history. Al-Emir Abdel Qadir, considered as the founder of the modern Algerian state, has written one of the most beautiful pages of the history of the 19th century. When the carnage was at its worst, the Emir appeared in the streets as if sent by God, who wrote European gazettes of that time. I would like to read you a passage of an editorial of the New York Times published a few months after this heroic event. For Abdul Qadir, this is indeed a chapter of glory, and the truest glory, too. It is no light thing for history to report that the most uncompromising soldier of Muhammad independence, when that independence kept the mountains sword in hand, became the most intrepid guardian of Christian lives and Christian honor in the days of political downfall and in the decline alike of his people and of his faith. The defeats which surrendered Algiers to the Franks have been strangely and nobly avenged. Today, the Christian world unites to honor the dethroned Prince of Islam, the most unselfish of knightly warriors, risking limb and life to rescue his ancient foes, his conquerors, and the conquerors of his race and his religion from outrage and from death, October 1860. It needs to be mentioned here that well before the first Geneva Convention of International Humanitarian Law, in 1864, Emir Abdel Qadir had established a law codifying the treatment of war prisoners with specific obligation for women prisoners. This code was strictly followed throughout his fierce and long resistance against the French colonizer between 1832 and 1847. Any conspiration was severely punished. This fact is internationally recognized, and the Red Cross itself refers to Emir Abdel Qadir as one of the precursors of the international humanitarian law, or the law of war, as later proposed by Henry Dunant, the founder of the Red Cross. As an independent nation, faithful to its history and the principles of November 1st, 1954 proclamation, Algeria is fully committed to peace and security at the regional and international levels, advocation for the non-interference in internal affairs, the peaceful resolution of disputes, the establishment of good neighboring relations and cooperation with all states of the regions that it belongs to. This commitment is guided by the respect of the principle and laws stated in the United Nations Charter and in African Union Constitutive Act, to which Algeria is fully adhering to. Algeria has been heavily impacted by the transformation of the international system during the 1990s and early 2000. For 10 years. Algeria was confronted with the most severe and destructive expressions of terrorism. Algeria has faced and vanquished this scourge without any support from outside, except, of course, the support of brotherly and friendly countries. Politically, this bitter phase of the Algerian contemporary history has been closed by a successful national reconciliation process, culminating in the Charter of Peace and National Reconciliation. This experience has set a precedent for the possibility of achieving a reconciliation without resorting to the assistance of external parties as an approach or a model that can inspire other countries that unfortunately had to suffer the same problems. As we will see later, the experience followed the Algerian approach to settle the Malian crisis and its contribution to the Libyan case. Let me now mention a few successful international mediation led by the Algeria, followed by mediations in internal crises. But before that, as we are in academic context, let us define for the students the concept of mediation and closely related notion, code of use of order. The goal of mediation is for neutral third party to help disputants come to a consensus on their own. A mediator which enjoys credibility and the confidence of the parties works with the conflicting sides to explore the interests underlying their position, rather than imposing a solution. Mediation can be effective at allowing parties to express their feelings and fully explore their concerns. They have ordered, as Mr. Amoura said, ordered Manil to resolve the international conflicts. Let me now speak about the Algerian international mediation. The first one is Iran-Iraq. The first case is the mediation carried out between Iraq and Iran during the Shah era regarding the border dispute over the Shatt al-Arab. This mediation culminated with the signing of the Algiers Agreement on March 1975. Algeria initiated another mediation to settle the conflict that started between Iraq and Iran during early 1980, but this process could not be brought to its end. During this mediation, we sadly lost our Minister of Foreign Affairs, late Sadiq bin Yahya. While he was traveling from Iran to Iraq, his airplane was hit by a missile within the Iraq airspace in 1982. He was accompanied by 5 other Algerian senior diplomats. This underlines another important fact about mediation. Okay, 2. U.S. hostage crisis. The second case is the mediation between Iran and the United States and as the American hostage crisis. Algeria was also asked by the United States of America and the Islamic Republic of Iran to intervene in the American hostage crisis, who were detained in the U.S. Embassy in Tehran for more than 2 years. The third one is the Eritrea-Ethiopian conflicts. And I will go to the internal crisis. The first one is the Mali crisis. At the request of the Malian Authority, Algeria led the UN mediation process between the Malian government and 6 armed groups from the other. In Libya, Algeria has made substantial contribution on the same lines. The same attitude and position of rejection of foreign interference has been adopted by Algeria regarding the Syrian crisis, which now, thanks to God, has been overcome by the Syrian legitimated government and authorities. More recently, in Sudan, through the action of Mr. Lamamra Ramdan, personal envoy of the United Secretary General Sudan, and former Algerian Minister of Foreign Affairs, Algeria promised the same inclusive political process. Before concluding, I want to mention and pay tribute to a few Algerian senior diplomats who proudly represented the Algerian diplomacy and dedicated their lives and career to the cause of international peace. As I mentioned at first, Mr. Sadiq Ben Yahya, our former Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Nasser Ibrahimi, who is known as a UN Secretary General of an Arabic Envoys to Syria, Special UN Representative for Iraq and Afghanistan, Special UN Representative for Haiti and Arabic Special Envoy for Lebanon, Mr. Mohammed Sahnoun, former ambassador to several countries and Secretary General of the United Nations Special Representative for Somalia, Mr. Ramdan Lamamra, former Algerian Minister of Foreign Affairs, Special Envoy, Personal Envoy to Sudan, and Saeed Jamil, Special Envoy for the Great Lakes region. Thank you very much. I will not want to.
Time for the Q&A session for asking questions. Okay, the last speaker today, the last 10 minutes speech will be for His Excellency Ambassador Ravi Nash, Ambassador of Lebanon to India, he speaks on Lebanese domestic diplomacy of coexistence.
Good afternoon, everyone. Well, being the last speaker, I know I'm standing between you and lunch, and I know that deep inside you are wishing and hoping that I will wrap up quickly and finish soon. But I promise to do this if you only promise to stay awake. Then after that, you can take it up. In line with the theme of our workshop today, the job goes, do you know why Middle Eastern politicians never play hide and seek? Because it's nearly impossible for any politician to stay hidden during the Middle East peace process. Ladies and gentlemen, first and foremost, I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to the organizers of this esteemed workshop, the Gender Center for Middle East Studies, and of course, in collaboration with Gender India Institute and Gender Center for the Global South, for extending to me the honor of participating in this vital discourse. As an alumnus of Gender Global University and the first PhD graduate from the Gender School of International Affairs, returning to this institution always fills me with a sense of pride and nostalgia. I'm delighted to be here once again amidst esteemed heads of university, esteemed faculty members, bright students represent the future of diplomacy, and indeed among my colleagues, the distinguished ambassadors. Today, as we convene for this workshop, amidst the backdrop of devastating conflict unfolding in the Middle East, particularly the unprecedented, horrific, genocidal war waged by Israel upon the Palestinians, the significance of our gathering cannot be overstated. Gender Global University's commitment to fostering valuable and inspiring activities, even in the face of such great challenges, underscores the importance of platforms like these in facilitating dialogue and understanding. The subject I have been tasked with addressing in the span of 10 minutes has been the focal point of countless volumes, articles, and insightful and extensive research. Yet, the pleasure to share insights about my country transcends the challenge of concising such a complex topic. The theme of the workshop, Middle East Just Peace Diplomacy, highlights the importance of regional cooperation and dialogue. In this context, discussing Lebanon's experience in diplomacy becomes not only relevant, but also indispensable. Lebanon's unique position and challenge make its domestic policy a crucial component of the broader Middle East diplomatic landscape. As the saying goes, all politics is local. Emphasizing Lebanon's role underscores the strong link between regional dynamics and local realities in achieving peace and stability. Lebanon's rich history serves as a backdrop to the domestic diplomacy of coexistence that I am proud to represent. Situated at the crossroads of three continents, Africa, Asia, and Europe, Lebanon has been a melting pot of civilizations, each leaving its indelible mark on our multicultural, multi-ethnic, and pluralistic society. However, this diversity has also made Lebanon a fertile ground for foreign interference, dating back to the waning days of the Ottoman Empire. At that time, international powers, mainly Europeans, sought to advance their interests under the guise of protecting minority. You know, Lebanon is a composition of a group of minorities, and that made Lebanon a fertile ground for regional and international interference to play out very loud on the soil of Lebanon. The legacy of foreign interference was further exacerbated during the French Mandate, which favored the interests of Christians at the expense of other religious minorities, laying the groundwork for deep-stated fissures within Lebanese society. Gradually, the tumultuous regional developments, including the creation of Israel in 1948 and subsequent wars, only served to plunge Lebanon deeper into a devastating civil war. This war was played, as I said, by regional powers through their proxies, earning Lebanon the unfortunate moniker of the war of others played out over the Lebanese soil. Amidst this chaos, however, emerged a beacon of hope in the form of the Taif Agreement. You know, Taif is a city in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, where in 1989, Lebanese politicians came together to negotiate a pivotal agreement that would ultimately end the war, the civil war, and fundamentally alter the country's political landscape. So Taif Agreement had drastically changed the political system in Lebanon. The Taif Accord ushered in a constitutional form of democracy. And by this I mean a democracy by consensus, where every minority has its say in governing the country and a share in the power, and also every group has a veto power. This arrangement sought to distribute power among Lebanon's diversity and Lebanon's religious sects, ensuring representation and participation for all. Under the Taif Accord, power-sharing arrangements were established, with Muslims and Christians each holding a 50-50 stake in governance, and proportional representation guaranteed for all religious sects. Of course, this system is not without its flaws, including occasional stalemates and sectarian wrangling. However, the advantages are undeniable. By confining political disputes within institutional frameworks and guaranteeing a voice for every minority, the Taif Accord has provided Lebanon with a foundation for coexistence and stability. As we reflect on Lebanon's journey of domestic diplomacy, it is imperative to recognize the lessons it offers for the broader Middle East region. In a landscape marked by conflict and division, Lebanon stands as a testament to the power of dialogue, compromise, and inclusive governance in fostering peace and stability. In closing, I'm reminded of the words of Lebanese poet Khalil Gibran, who wrote, "Out of suffering have emerged the strongest souls. The most massive characters are seared with scars. Let us heed the lessons of Lebanon's past as we strive toward a future defined by coexistence, understanding, and justice." Thank you.
Okay, thank you for it. Okay. For the Q&A. Okay, let's open the floor for the Q&A. We have 10 minutes, so now if you have any questions on Algeria, Lebanon, Syria, Oman, yes. Regarding the many issues we have today, yes. The microphone, we have 3 questions. Please tell your name and your school.
My question is to Ambassador. So my question is based on 2 points. The first one being, you mentioned that Lebanon went to a multi-ethnic country, and there are different sects and religions within the religion, right? For example, the Maronites, each of them support and like different countries, right? For example, the Maronites and the France, the Sunnis like Saudi Arabia, and the Shias like Iran, for example. Do you think that the Indian society is becoming organized, and do you think because of this, there could be foreign policy of all these different sects and that is the first question. And second question is based on the Taif Accords. You said that because of Taif Accords, there was a power sharing between the and so then what about the representation different levels of government? Do you think that this power sharing agreement would practice dividing Lebanon and
Thank you for the question. Regarding the first one, the point is not the unity or is not the homogeneity of the society. The society is by itself a pluralistic society. So we are not. The aim is not to make it a homogeneous society. No, I mean we are happy. Variety brings beauty and brings strength to the society. So we're happy with the plurality of our society. But what Taif Accord did is that the power is somehow shared among all minorities. Because in Lebanon, we don't have majority versus minority. Even our parliamentary system in Lebanon doesn't work as the classic parliamentary system like majority versus minority, government versus opposition. Because there is no majority in Lebanon, there are all minorities. There is large minority and small minority, but there is no majority. So Taif Accord has regulated this division, or let's say this composition, and assign to each minority a say in running their country by giving almost kind of veto power to every minority. Regarding the second question is our policy has become more Yeah, I think part of this question, I also answered in the first question that yes, Type Accord has managed to, they didn't deprive any community, not the Christian, because before the Type Accord, the Christian were the dominant part of the political Latin level. Still, I mean, still the only country in the Middle East that the president of the country is Christian in the Middle East. So always have Christian president. This is part of before Tayyip, but kept with the Tayyip Accord that always the president of the Republic of Lebanon should be from the Christian community. So yes, I mean, no one was deprived from their power and given to another community, but the power was shared in a better way at the Tayyip Accord.
So after ambassadors, it is all right. Sorry.
There is a one question, yes.
Yeah, I had a question for the ambassadors of Oman, Algeria, and Syria. Well, the roots from the country. So, states of the Middle East have
Can you raise your voice? I cannot hear you.
noted with the Arab Spring triggered by a series of internal upheavals which spilled across internal borders. Yet, as of today, Algeria has power consolidated within a few unelected officials. Syria is under the regime of the Assad family, and Oman remains an absolute monarch. How do states of the Middle East go about establishing a humanitarian peace across international borders whilst remaining undemocratic and authoritarian within their domestic policies?
Want to start? Good question. I think Ambassador Shibani heard the question actually. Okay, this was the question for the ambassadors, I think, right? So,
You want me to start?
if you want.
Yeah, yeah, no
yes.
problem. Good, so my answer will be first of all, to get about the international messaging. They are shaping minds. They are creating images, but when it comes to reality, you need to do your effort to be closer to it. I will tell you something. The unity of Arab nation is there. Language, tradition, culture, religion, and mindset. So wherever you go now in the Arab states, you will feel solidarity with all of issues in the other Arab state. This is first. When it comes to the special way of life and the special system in each country, this is very normal and it should be like this. Because we have seen this story and we have had different challenges that led to the current system in each country. I will give you Syria as an example. My colleague ambassador of Nigeria spoke about Prince Abdul Qadir al-Jazairi. Prince Abdul Qadir al-Jazairi, once upon a time, he was the most important participant in making the Syrian internal peace. When the fight started between Muslims and Christians, but he did it. When the Prime Minister of Syria is a Lebanese citizen, but many ministers in Lebanon are of Syrian origin. Palestinians were given all the rights of Syrian citizens all the time. All the rights. Because you know why? This matters. Arab unity is not a political unity which will unfortunately wait for a long time. And possibly the international challenges are too big to handle nowadays. But unity of Arab nation, it's there in the streets. That's why, as my colleague, the ambassador of Lebanon mentioned, all Arabs, the citizens, the everyday people, they would not accept any more Israeli attacks, aggressions on any Arab citizen or any Arab land. Thank you so much.
Okay, we have a question, for the back, as well.
They confirm exactly those words. I used to work as a Bulgarian diplomat 25 years ago. And you know, I very much agree with Benjamin, because when we wanted the support of Arab countries, we didn't need to go to 19 of them. We needed to approach only the chair of the League of Arab countries, and he or she will do the rest of the work, which is exactly not the case in my region, in the Balkans, where you need the support of Serbia, Macedonia, Albania, Greece, Bulgaria. They are not united. You need to go through each of them separately, and you waste your time. So I very much want to reconfirm how easy in the United Nations, and I used to work for the United Nations for a long time. The Arab group is the most united one, the most easiest to work with.
Ambassador, I'm sure you want to add something. Okay. Ambassador, Ashwin.
Only, could you take me a second? I will talk about another example of unity. I would love to mention something about a kind of sweet called Nabil Sia. Nabil Sia is a very nice, delicious kind of sweets, originally coming from the city of Naples in Pakistan. Very famous in Syria and Lebanon. But the surprise is the best kind of cheese to be used for this sweets is Bulgarian. Thank you.
Okay, Ambassador.
Thank you. What is the student in the question?
Yes.
I think Algeria is not, my country is not not here in India. I invite you to read more. You don't take news only from one. I think the news about Algeria has been taken from special news. Yeah, and I invite you to read more about Algeria. And invite you, Mr. Ambola, we spoke last time about to receive within students from your university in the embassy. Invite you to the embassy to speak about the election and invite you to follow our presidential election in September. And then you can give your new idea about our election. Thank you.
Yes, it is wrong.
I was surprised the other day when I met His Excellency the Ambassador, that he told me when he knew my name, he said, "Oh, we have a big family, Amora family in Algeria. And in Morocco, in Egypt, in Lebanon, in everywhere there is Amora. I don't know that Amora. Everybody likes it because it is taken from love and amity among. That is why unity and cohesion of the society, of a nation, is very important and gives a strong strength and power to the countries when they are alive. That is why the unity and anti-cohesion forces from outside, the first thing they do is drive a hedge in the very body of that society, as sex, as religion, as faith, as whatsoever it is, to weaken that society. And here it's part of diplomacy being played, which I refer to quasi diplomacy practiced by the super big powers against the development of things.
Can you? Yes, for Ambassador Al-Shibani, he wants to reply.
Hello, thank you so much. Unfortunately, the voice wasn't very much clear, but I was following on the responses of some of my colleagues. But I think, as I agree with colleagues, that unity among the Arab nationals is unmatched, and I think people should not confuse between politics and the Arab nation, and when we speak about peace, peace is a value. Sometimes it's a kind of morals that need to be built up. It is where it would lead to a practice, and there have been challenges within the Middle East, but always, I think people have over the years understood that dialogue is one of the medium trying to bring unity, bring people together, and bring countries together.
Okay, thank you. One more question. Yes, please. The bottom.
Hello. Good afternoon to my students and my dear colleagues. I was broad-based questions, slightly introspective. Effectively, what I'm building on to what Professor Chauliya said, and he mentioned that unfortunately or fortunately, all that we get for maintaining peace is the blessings. So building on that, in this globalized world, and when I say globalized, I use it synonymously, this quid pro quo world, how do we effectively try to reinforce our values of non-interference and peace, especially when we get certain ideals espoused by the West, which are focused on providing financial aid and many other ways to effectively lure other nations into entering into other agreements with them. So how do we use these values of non-interference and peace to foster harmony?
You want to, who is your,
This question is for everyone on this panel.
okay. If someone wants to reply?
Thank you for choosing me. If I understood the question well, the answer will be very clear. Please put the influence, the effect of the going on globalization and go to the basics. The answer will be very easy. In Jerusalem, there is a kind of cultural center. It's a kind of mosque, but it's a kind of cultural center because during the history, Indian people used to go there to do business, to do the prayer, and to handle social problems. You have many similar corners like this in Damascus. Only 10 days ago, I discussed with the Foreign Minister of India how to revive this human historical old value. At that time, culture, humanity, cooperation, coordination, and even later, the non-aligned movement had many mutual values to be on. After the change later, globalization took us to a different stage of way of thinking. I think it's very far from the basic human basis to be. Simply speaking, go to all beliefs and values of India, you will find the same in our region. Thank you.
We can stop here, and I give the floor to Professor Dr. Ibarra Adam for her concluding remarks and word of thanks. Esteemed guests, distinguished speakers, dear students and colleagues, we have reached now the conclusion of our insightful panel discussion on Middle East and North Africa, justice, diplomacy, experiences, and prospects. In today's discussion, we have highlighted the multifaceted nature of justice, diplomacy in the Middle East, and North Africa region. We heard about the crucial role of regional organizations like the World Cooperation Council and the League of Arab States and the relief efforts of individual nations like Oman, Syria, Lebanon, and Algeria. Our esteemed guests shed light on the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead, emphasizing the importance of continued dialogue, inclusivity, and a commitment to addressing the root cause of conflict. We hope these ongoing efforts will pave the way for more peaceful and just future for the MENA region. So let's hope all that the spirit of diplomacy and cooperation prevail in the future, especially for Palestine. On this note, I would like to express our sincere gratitude to our distinguished guest today, His Excellency Ambassador Mr. Isa Saleh, Ambassador of Oman to India. His Excellency Ambassador Dr. Bassem Khatib, Ambassador of the Syrian Arab Republic to India. His Excellency Ambassador Dr. Ali Ashoun, Ambassador of the People's Democratic Republic of Algeria to India, and His Excellency Ambassador Dr. Rabi Nash, Ambassador of Lebanon to India. Of course, as we have all enjoyed their discussions and their experiences and expertise, which have enriched our understanding of the various diplomatic efforts toward a just and peaceful future for the Middle East and North Africa region. I would like also, before ending, to extend a special thanks to Professor Shriram Shurya and Dean of Gender School of International Affairs. He has left us, but we also should give him the same. And Professor W. Patnaik, Registrar of Gender Global University, and Professor Ambassador Dr. Abdul Fattah Amoura, Vice Dean of Gender School of International Affairs and Director of the Center of the Middle East Studies for their, of course, leadership and support in making this event possible today, and their invaluable contribution to the discussion. On behalf of Gender School of International Affairs, the Center for Middle East Studies and the Gender Institute of the Gender India Institute and the Gender Center for the Global Studies, I would like to thank you all for joining us today and for the discussion and your attention. And before ending this session, I would like to request you all please to join us for our coming second session in our program, which is scheduled on April 5th on India interest in MENA region, just peace and soft power. The discussion will cover two important topics: Indian economic diplomacy and Indian cultural diplomacy. And of course, we will have also more esteemed guests, Ambassador Ravi Tapar and Professor Elizabeth. So we will share more details about where the venue and the exact time very soon. Thank you all.
Secretary,
Students are requested to leave from either sides, in a peaceful manner, please, in a single file. Volunteers from CNAs and JCPS will assist. Please do not cause a commotion outside, as there may be meetings going on in the faculty office building. Now, Shivan. Sir, thank you so much for joining us. You can stand up from the meeting, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you. Have a good day, sir. Thank you.